are you today?
I'm so awesome. How are you?
I am so awesome because I'm joined by the awesome Yunnie Kim-Morena.
Oh, I feel the same way. I'm in good company.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I am so excited to introduce you today. And Yanny, friends, is also, she's one of the first four people I think I interviewed when this became a live now podcast, right? And why did I want to interview Yanni? Well, it's funny. You ever meet somebody in your life that you feel like was a sister from another life? Well, that is Yunni. And I met Yunni through her cousin, Wani, who is like a sister to her. And I felt so fortunate to have been in the company of her because she brings just this positive energy forward and is always lifting people up. And why wouldn't anybody want to be around that?
Wow, what an intro. What a way to start my day. Thank you for that.
Well, I see you and I see all your gifts, and I'm lucky to enough to have experienced your gifts. And we want everybody else to experience your gifts too, right? So let me tell people who you are and what you do, and you can actually give them way more detail than I ever could. But Yanni is a digital content creator and the founder of Kimchi Avocado. So if you don't know what kimchi is, that's a little reference there to know that she might be Korean. And when we say digital content creator, it's a food, but she specifically creates these amazing charcuterie boards and candy boards. So creative, you must look her up like right now.
I just want you to follow me around and intro me everywhere. That is so awesome. Thank you so much for that, Michelle.
Oh, well, I'm glad it lands because you're spectacular and people need to know more about you on other levels beyond your work.
Well, you know what? My work is really just my love language to communicate with people beyond just my family or my immediate network. So I feel so fortunate that I'm able to use food as my medium to hopefully inspire people to feel loved, like when they're eating my food, which you have, or just even to want to bring that creative energy through food into their own home or connect with their family in that way. So,
yeah, I mean, I think you described that so well that it's your love language because you really see that by the creativity, but the quality of what you select when you're putting something together. Everything you do is so highly curated, and I'm curious to understand if it's a little bit like it comes from your background in fashion, possibly. I'm not really sure, but it's like, you know, when you style somebody for an outfit, I feel like you're styling their food, right?
absolutely.
But maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that and kind of how you fell into kimchi avocado, because you didn't really fall into it. It was like something that you chose to do, right?
Well, it's a funny thing. I think now looking back and having so much time to reflect as we all did in this last year, there were so many things along my professional journey, but also my personal journey that really prepared me for this venture. So I was in fashion for 18 years and I loved it. I loved connecting with people. I loved being around beautiful creations. And all along, I was always all about entertaining. So I was in fashion, but at home, I was always throwing dinner parties. And again, it was always my love language. I always grew a garden. And it was also my way of connecting with my family. So I am Korean. I think Kimchi Avocado was the dead giveaway. And, you know, there's just not a lot of words spoken. I'm 1.5 generations. So my parents are immigrants and there just was not a lot of exchange of words at the dinner table, but you really felt the love and the connection through the food. And so from early on, I just knew that that was my way of expressing my love and gratitude to both of my parents, whether that was helping them prepare the meal eating with one another. And then I really carried that ritual on through my young adult life. When I was single and I would have friends over, I often threw birthday parties and for people that I really loved. And then as a parent, baking banana bread for my kids or cooking for my husband. So all along, even when food wasn't necessarily my career, it was always a part of my life. And I was always recipe developing. And of course, that's not what I called it, but
Yes.
I
You
was.
didn't know it was called that then. You were experimenting probably.
I was experimenting and feeding people that I cared about.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I left fashion after 17 years, I went into the restaurant business, not necessarily by choice. I took over a family business that was around since 1977. And I had absolutely no desire to be in the restaurant business. If anyone out there has grown up with restaurant owner parents, they work on holidays, you live there, live there. And I did not want to do it, but my husband had a come to Jesus talk with me and said, this really isn't about what you want. This is about preserving a legacy. And we have an opportunity to do something because my father had passed away, to preserve a legacy in the city that we were born and raised in.
Mm-hmm.
And so
we're talking about Santa Monica, right?
We're talking about Santa Monica, California, which, as you know, there's a lot of transplants, which are 100% welcome, but the people who are born and raised were a rare breed. Mm-hmm. And so he was absolutely right. And we rebranded and we relaunched. And it was so hard. I cried, I think, almost every day for a year. Mm. And one man told me, I remember, that I was going to fail. He said, what you've done is awful, because, people, you're not going to please everyone.
Yes. You shifted what the perspective of that restaurant probably was for that man, right?
I mean, honestly, Michelle, I think we went from accepting cash only to like a cash register to like a POS computer system. And I think that pissed them off.
Exactly.
It was just so minor, and we were also figuring it out. And
by the way, it looks so much better. So poo-poo on that boy, that man.
But you know what? After we hit our stride in year 3, and we realized and when I say we, my husband and I, we decided to join forces and work together, and we hit some success. And so we've continued to do the restaurant business for, we're 8 years now into the restaurant business. And we survived a year of pandemic and being in an industry that was hit really, really hard.
Yes.
And then from the pandemic was born not necessarily from pandemic, that was really when we took off, but a year before, so 2019, I developed the brand Kimchi Avocado, which is still a part of our restaurant group, but I wanted to do more, and I wanted to connect more with people and celebrate female entrepreneurship through a different lens. And that's where Kimchi Avocado was born.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a couple things that come up for me. One is when I hear about your story and just knowing you, and maybe this is your Korean roots, but you're being really humble about your background in fashion. I mean, you had one of the hottest stores in Los Angeles for 18 years, by the way, almost from its inception. And people sought you and your cousin Yanny out from all over the city. And it's not to be underplayed, because I think anybody would want to follow your trajectory and success, because no matter what you're going to touch, it's going to be beautiful and golden. So I love that. And the second thing, and that was at Fred Segal, by the way, for those people who do know the area and know fashion well, everybody knows Fred Segal, right? And the second thing I want to say is, how did you choose to work with your husband? I mean, that cannot be a small feat. Tell me all about that.
So I don't know that I necessarily choose to work with him, but It actually works out really well because he has a finance background. And I don't know if you know this, but when I started at Fred Segal, I was 19 years old. I started a business when I was 19, and I don't know who on earth thought that that would be okay. I wasn't even old enough to legally buy beer. And he was a finance major in college. And when I started my business, I am a creative person. I did not get the math gene. Let's just say I didn't. I do now. I've learned numbers really well. So he started keeping my books and helping me with P&Ls. And so we actually did work together throughout my
that. That's great.
Yeah, and he developed a business management firm because of that, because everyone else at Fred Segal didn't want to deal with their numbers either. So we actually had some experience working together. And because he also is great with operations, and we really needed somebody to develop operations when we took over the restaurant, it was a natural transition. And because he knows them so well and he knows numbers, and I understand recipe development and creative marketing. So it was actually a very natural transition and fit. And it works out really well because his skill set is so different. And we really just stay in our lanes. Yeah. And when he doesn't, that's my line. Stay in your lane, buddy, and I'll stay in mine. And it works out. 8 years now.
And I love the fact that he wanted to protect a legacy.
He is so all about heart. He's actually heart over businessman, which you wouldn't think because he's a finance guy. Yeah. But a lot of what inspires his deals are things like that, where he wants to protect a legacy, or that's always what he's led with. And it's been an incredible influence on me because I get to see things through that lens, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful way to do business.
Well, it's not by chance that you attracted him into your life, because, you probably complete one another, right?
Yes. And he also grew up next door to me. So I don't know how much work I did attracting him. We were neighbors. So
you're like, it just came into my life.
It really did.
I saw him playing baseball in the front yard, and that was it.
Pretty much.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about Kimchi Avocado and the different offerings that you have, and, sort of those beginning stages of attracting clients, and how that all started for you. Like, who were your first people that you said, hey, I've now transitioned out of fashion and I'm in food,
So it's an interesting story. Kimchi Avocado was born out of a relationship that's very near and dear to my heart. I was really just actually sharing a lot of my family life on my private Instagram account, which was basically cooking morning, noon, and night, and being a personal assistant and chef to my children. And one of my clients from Fred Segal, who I adore and we've stayed in touch throughout the years, said, I love the way that you cook for your family. It's really inspiring. I'd like for you to meet my friend. And her friend happened to be one of the top fashion photographers in the world, and every cover of Vogue and Elle. And of course, the fashion girl in me said 100%, I would love to meet him. And we met, and he walked into my house and said, oh, you are Korean Martha Stewart. He said, why don't you share this? Why aren't you sharing this with the world? This is really beautiful, the way that you live with your family. And I love, like I always have, growing my vegetables and cooking and making my bone broths. And so he basically came back to my house 2 weeks later with a whole camera crew, and we started filming cooking videos. And I loved it. And that's when I had the conversation with my husband and said, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. I no longer am working with the restaurant group. and I'd really like to do this digital food content full time. And he was so supportive of it. And what was really, I think, one of the most amazing things that came out of this decision was when I finished filming my videos. I think it was like a 3-day shoot. I was exhausted. I was ready to collapse. And
a lot of work.
It's so much work.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's a lot of work.
Totally. And people don't realize it's like, first of all, you're an actress and also creating like food, you know, so it's like multiple things at once that you have to tap into, you know, it's so much work.
And talking at the same time is one of the hardest things to do. And my two kids were standing there when we finished, and everyone clapped because you wrap after 3 days. And my older son had tears in his eyes, and he just ran up to me and gave me a hug. And he said, "I'm really proud of you, Mom, for following your dreams." And I just kind of fell apart. I became a little unhinged at that moment because I just wasn't expecting it. And it was so genuine. And what I realized is, wow, I'm modeling for my children that you can do something that you really love and make it your career. And B, you can take a chance on yourself as a 43-year-old woman.
Absolutely.
And that has been one of the biggest standouts of me starting this brand. And that was where the digital piece came in. And then the boards came about. That was a kind of like a COVID blessing and mistake, where people really wanted a way to celebrate with one another, but being safe and not sharing food. So the entrepreneur and problem solver in me just started creating these individual portions of beautiful charcuterie, because who doesn't want to, eat with their eyes too, something you can enjoy visually. And it really took off. And then it turned into the candy boards because I wanted to deliver joy. We needed that.
Yes.
And
we still need it,
we always need it. And that's really, when I get those messages of people from 4 years old all the way on up to 95, of messages of, wow, this really made me smile today, or I've never received anything like this. It just motivates me and inspires me to keep doing more and creating more. So now we're 3 years into Kimchi Avocado, and we've got the boards business, which is thriving, and I am so thrilled about it. And then the digital food content, which I love doing.
So tell me, like when you're talking about the boards, just because, I think, you kind of have to be living under a rock if you don't know what she's talking about with having cheese boards or charcuterie boards, or now moving into candy. And there's so many other themes I'm sure that Yanny can come up with, especially by holiday, right? But can you give a little description for people what you mean when you're saying boards? Because, if we're people all over the world that listen to this, right? Give them a visual of like what you're creating.
So what I often describe the boards as are mosaics made from food. So I have a collection of mostly wooden platters. I love working with wood. And you will often find on a charcuterie board some cured meat. So we'll do beautiful salami and prosciutto, and then always something sweet to balance out the savories. So there's always going to be some sort of candied nut or honeycomb or a fig jam. And then
I'm hungry.
Yeah, right. And do you like how I'm describing the food? Like, it's just, this is how I feel about it. It's just such a I get so excited talking about food. And then we have to hit all the other textures. So the crunch factor. So there's going to be crackers, breadsticks, and then we need the acid. So then there's always going to be olives or cornichon. And then when we do the candy boards, that can be anything from, you dream it and we make it. So we've done, one of my favorite ones that we just did was for a woman who just got new boobs because she had breast cancer. So we made a boobie board.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
It
What a
is
great idea.
my favorite thing I have ever made up until now. Talk to me tomorrow, it'll be something else. But this booby board, I am going to donate 100% of the proceeds for the breast cancer month.
Oh,
So,
I love that.
yeah, I mean, I honestly get inspired by my clients who give me these ideas. Like, do you think you can make an evil eye board? And I love it. I turn on a podcast, I zone out, and I just start designing. And I can't take all the credit. I do have a design team as well, but I spend quite a bit of time in the studio doing it still myself.
Yeah, I love hearing you deep dive into what you put on the board and how you create, and the way you articulate and describe is just it really just draws people in. Super cool. So tell me, like, when you think about like your drive and where that comes from, you know, like what made you, because clearly you've been an entrepreneur since you were young. Like you started your business in fashion when you guys were like babies, basically. So where's the drive come from?
So I think part of it comes from having two immigrant parents who had the work ethic of nothing else I've ever seen. My mother is such a badass. She came here with $200 in her pocket and didn't speak a lick of English. And my father as well. They have an incredible work ethic. So that helps because that's my foundation. And then we also grew up really poor in a pretty well-to-do neighborhood. So at a certain age, some of it was driven by just the fact that I just wanted things. And they were things that my parents really couldn't afford. So I got a job when I was 10 years old and I started babysitting. It's actually kind of crazy as a mom now to think that somebody trusted a 10-year-old to watch two kids.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think about how I used to babysit and I'd leave the baby crying because it was freaking me out. So, I mean, I'm like, I don't know how to make it stop crying. I don't want to call the parents though, because I'm a good babysitter.
Yeah, I've been there. So I think it's a combination of what was modeled for me with my parents. And then I think when I was a young kid, just wanting things for myself and feeling like I could just go out and get them. So, let me problem solve and figure this out, which I did. And then now it's interesting because what drives me isn't necessarily monetary, but what drives me now is the creativity and the inspiration, both to feel inspired and then the desire to want to inspire others.
Yeah, you talked a little bit before we got on the call about like what drives you every day is the inspiring other people and you receiving inspiration. But then you kind of said a little bit more about what you want for female entrepreneurs. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So again, drawing back to my parents, and especially I would say in the Asian culture, and maybe you could speak to this from your culture, but you really didn't see, women, definitely not women of color, having a voice. And I certainly didn't see women who looked like myself as leaders or decision makers. And I am so excited about this culture of women celebrating one another and how this has become our norm, because I'm sure you understand this being in corporate America. 15 years ago, it was dog eat dog.
Oh, yeah.
There was no celebrating one another. That person who was, for me, it was a buyer who had a different store, was not sending you contacts and different lines, and you weren't, and I naturally am a collaborator. I was also very young, so I really just wanted to be friends with everyone. I was a little naive. And so this actually feels very natural to me to want to celebrate other females. And I really also want to put a spotlight on women of color and as entrepreneurs. And I am
that dang thing again. No, just kidding.
I know, I'm so
Don't
sorry.
worry.
So I feel like using my brand as a launching pad and also as a way to collaborate with other female entrepreneurs is so meaningful. And one of those things, going back to what drives me, because it can't always just be about the P&L. It can't always just be about the numbers, because at this stage in my life, it's taking me, away from the home and away from my kids. It's got to be more meaningful. It's got to be more important. And
yeah, I mean, I think that's where like attracts like, right? And why we became friends is that it's always from the lens of seeing other people grow, helping them be successful, and in turn finding our own success by looking at the reflection of others, right?
Mhm.
And you truly are a testament to that. Like, you'll stop everything and really try to help people when you don't have necessarily the extra time always, but you'll do it to be helpful. So it's a beautiful part of you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do make sure that my cup is full so I can do those things. And that's been also another really big learning lesson for me, is making sure I refill that cup so I can give.
Yeah. And I think actually after COVID, I think so many people, even though we were all together and there were beautiful parts of that, were depleted. So there was a process of time about realigning with ourselves and being able to come back out even stronger probably than you were before.
Oh, I think it was necessary. For my family, we needed a reset. And I don't really know how else we would have done it, because I think for a proper reset, it's about time and space. And when do you ever really give yourself time and space? The world doesn't give you time and space.
Exactly. Well, we were given permission to actually step in and seep into that. And how beautiful for all of us on that level.
Oh, it was monumental. It was life-changing, and I will forever be grateful for that time.
It was certainly definitely a reset for the world, and it's still continuing to reset. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a few more questions for you. The first of which is, tell me what your top 5 core values are. You seem very clear.
I am. And they, you know what, I think my core values, I would say one is family. And that also means my chosen family. So I'm very blessed to have very close, good people around me, and I prioritize those people in my life. So I would say top, first and foremost, would be family. My second would be spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And that again goes back to that year that we had off, and I really became committed to a spiritual practice. And I am working on bringing that value to my children.
I love that.
I think that they're at an age where they can understand that. So I would say second would be spirituality. Third would be giving.
Mm-hmm. I see that.
Because I feel like I am so privileged in so many ways, and that I have to. It's just the position I'm in. So after spirituality, I would say it would be giving. And then my fourth, I would say, would be, I don't know if being inspiring is a value, but I always, I ask myself.
One of my values.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one of my questions I always ask myself before I commit to something. Is this going to inspire others? Is this going to incite inspiration in myself? And again, something that I try and bring to my children as a parent.
Yeah.
And lastly, I would say love.
I was going to say that. Kindness and love for you go together. Yeah.
They do, because it's like, is this, and I always say that to my 7-year-old, is it loving? Is it kind? Is it true?
Mm-hmm.
And so
I love that. I love those 3 questions. They're so great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking them, because sometimes I have to really sit and give myself a moment to reflect, and I don't give myself that much time, so I appreciate that question.
Yeah, no, it's, as we know, that the more in alignment with your values you are, the more fulfillment that you actually create in your life, and the more you could set clear boundaries for other people, and for yourself within relationships. So I think it's a very important thing too, as we're talking about entrepreneurship and creating opportunities, is that if you're able to reflect, like you said, on your values, you're able to make choice from a place that's authentic to you, right? So I love, and I was pretty clear that you were clear on what your core values were. But I do have a game, so we'll play it one day. We'll play it with Yanny. We'll play it with Yanny, because I haven't seen her in a bit, so I'd love to do that. But
oh, I'd love that.
No, it would be fun. You'll enjoy it. So my last question for you is really, what's next with Kimchi Avocado? Like, what do you see? How are you growing? Or are you happy with where you are currently, and it'll continue to just grow in the areas that you're currently in?
Michelle, you know me too well to know that we are not staying put where we are.
That's so true.
I am a serial entrepreneur, and I love to see a brand continue to not only grow, but reinvent itself, right? So our next step is something we're doing right now, which I'm very excited about, is building a studio. Mm-hmm. And in that studio space, we'll have a studio kitchen, so I'll film all my content there. But I'm also opening it up as a workshop. So we'll be able to invite people into our world and really experience what we do. And it will also be where we sell our boards. So we'll be putting together all of our orders there. And then we are also in development of a product. When does
that open? Like, when do you see that opening? Curious.
Spring 2022.
All right. I can't wait for my first workshop.
Oh, you'll be there. You're going to be there cutting the ribbon.
That'd be amazing. I'd love that.
So that's very exciting. And then we are in development for a product, and I can't say exactly what it is, but it pertains to the candy, and it allows people all over the country to experience the candy, because as of now, we only offer it to our greater Los Angeles area. So we are developing a product that I'm very excited about, and just to continue to create food content and be super honest, and continue to connect with my beautiful IG community, something I really love. And that's what we have in the pipeline.
Yeah, people definitely need to follow your feed, because I have to say, like, if I could have everything that you make for dinner, breakfast, lunch, for your family, but I'm too lazy, so therefore, actually, I wouldn't call it lazy.
I have an open door policy. Just pull right up, and that's my love language. I love feeding the people I love. So
I know I'm actually in your hood a lot more now because of soccer. So I could actually just pull up and be like, dude, where's my food for the night? No,
yeah, seriously, just knock.
I love it. That would be amazing. That's the true power of community. Like, when you were talking about family, you're talking about your extended community. And you're amazing at building community. And that's why that's why you're so successful.
That's all we got, man. We have each other. So
that's great. It is so true. Well, I want to thank you for your time today, and just being you and showing up with all your light and wisdom and knowledge and inspiration that you're basically bringing to women and men around the world, that just makes it all possible. It really does.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And I want to give you an extra special thanks for having this platform to celebrate other females in a really special way. I loved this time with you, and I appreciate you. So
Oh, I
thank you for
appreciate you
having
too,
me.
my love. Okay, so please let people know how they can reach you, how they can order your boards, and all that kind of good stuff. Anything they need to know.
So you can find us at Kimchi Avocado on Instagram, and you can find us also on our website, kimchiavocado.com, and that's where you can order boards, and you can also see food videos. And yeah, those are the two main ways to find us.
Well, I want to leave everybody with the fact that they need to be ordering a board for the holidays. That's what I'm going to say. Because there will be no greater, more beautiful statement than walking into the room with one of her charcuterie boards, cheese and charcuterie boards. I'm going to tell you. And she probably, knowing her, would, if you said, oh, hey, can you do like a beautiful dessert table? She'll give you that too.
They are showstoppers. You don't lie. They are showstoppers.
They are amazing. So anyways, thank you so much for your time. And I know that we will chat soon.
Thank you.
Okay?
Bye.